Live from Banjul, this is the news at 2200 hours. It's coming to you from the Gambia radio and television services. In our top stories: decentralizing Gambia's inoculation campaign, regional health officials launch rural COVID-19 vaccination program in Lower and North Bank regions. Building capacities on health implications of diabetes and hypertension, Gunjur Youth for Health train its members on non-communicable diseases. Scores of Muslims attend the inauguration of a mosque in Jara Kanikunda worth over $8 million. In sports, the Gambia Wrestling Association and partners conclude a two-day training on traditional sports and cultural activities. In internationals, in Jordan, some 20 people are detained, including a former top advisor to the king and a member of the royal family. All these plus many more stories coming ahead. Do stay tuned. This is the news at 10 with me, Fatmata Sise. We begin this edition of the news with health matters because a local organization called Gunjur Youth for Health on Sunday trained its members on non-communicable diseases, focusing on building capacities on health implications of diabetes and hypertension. Janke Ture tells us more.
The day-long training on diabetes and hypertension by Gunjur Youth for Health is meant to build the capacities of members of the organization to better understand issues such as the causes and prevalence of the diseases. The coordinator of Gunjur Youth for Health, Ahmed Manjang, spoke on the significance of the training.
Most of these kids now, some are trainee medical doctors, some just nurses, but they prescribe these drugs, and these hypertensive and diabetic drugs, they control drugs, and they have some serious side effects if they are not properly managed. So that's why we call these specialists to come and build their capacity, advise them, how to go about it, and also give us an insight and understanding of diabetes, how it is developed, how it damage other part of the body and all that.
Hypertension and diabetes, according to health experts, are two risk factors that can cause complications, including heart attacks and strokes. Reports also indicated a substantial overlap between the disease mechanisms of diabetes and hypertension. Knowing the common causes and disease mechanisms allows a more effective and proactive approach in their prevention and treatment. Dr. Abubakar just said physical activity is an important protective role in the two diseases.
I think this is the most significant way that we can reach people. Diabetes and high blood pressure are the most common causes of disease and of death in the world, including the Gambia, and a workshop on this in the community to get the awareness of the community about it is really very, very important. It's very life-saving. It can save many, many lives. And the diet plays a role. The other thing that plays a role in both diabetes and hypertension, that's why you see them together, because they're related in the things that cause them, is our activity. Many people now, even a very short distance, they don't want to walk it. They want to take a car. So you can see somebody, a walk that would have taken them 15 minutes to walk, they will never take that walk.
Among dozens of participants, mainly medical students, attended the training. But Nafai said the training is important and relevant.
This training is very important for the fact that though we have learned a lot about diabetes and hypertension, but today we were opportune to come face to face with the experts who are working in the health centers and who are mostly facing the realities, because most of the diabetes patients and hypertension patients, they encounter them, I can say, on a daily basis. So today this was a chance for us to come face to face with these experts, and then they tell us what they know.
As the concerned illnesses pose health challenges, the training is expected to boost participants' knowledge and participation in the need to campaign against the two deadly lifestyle diseases. Janke Ture, GRTS News.
We're staying with health matters because Regional Health Directorate in the Lower River region has partnered with expanded program on immunization to launch the rural COVID-19 vaccine program in LRR. And this follows the launch of the national inoculation exercise by President Barrow earlier last month. Arajimbai brings us up to date.
Since the discovery of the first case of COVID-19 in the Gambia in March last year, government has responded with a series of interventions to contain the spread of the coronavirus. The most recent intervention is the securing of vaccines as efforts continue to vaccinate the population. The achievement is described as the biggest stride in the fight against the pandemic. Here in the Lower River region, the vaccine was recently launched in Mansakonko, where the Regional Health Director, Bolong Jobate, assured of the safety of the vaccine, saying government and the health ministry in particular is committed to the safety and well-being of all Gambians.
The government is committed, and the Minister of Health has been and will always be committed and align ourselves with standard global effort and methodology to combating diseases and events to protect the health and well-being of the Gambian population. Looking at the youthful nature of the country, the Gambia, intends to vaccinate 1,389,110 people, and for LRR, the Lower River region, 58,547 people need to be vaccinated.
The Governor of Lower River region, Rohi John Manjang, thanked government for effective COVID-19 response and recovery strategies. She calls on people to have trust in the health sector and health professionals and take the vaccine for their own safety.
We have to trust the experts who are there to save our lives, who have tasked themselves to take up this responsibility as their core line of ethical value and educational field of studies. These are the doctors, the nurses. If they convince us, tell us that this is just the same as the malaria injection, this is just as the same as the usual chicken pox that we have been taking, the usual yellow fever injection. Why are we doubting them when we have accepted almost a dozen of injections in the past? So what is the change in the notion here? We have to accept them again.
Mamanding Kinte of the expanded program on immunization at the Ministry of Health described the launch of the vaccine as the beginning of the end of the COVID-19 pandemic. She assured of the safety of the vaccine.
Before any vaccine is introduced in the country, WHO has to pre-qualify or approved for emergency use list. And in addition to that, the Gambia government, under the leadership of medicine control, will also have to endorse the vaccine. And COVID-19 vaccine has passed all these due processes and showing to the population that the vaccine has been tested, approved, and its safety is being assured. So on that note, I encourage the population, especially those that fall under the priority list, especially the health workers, those with comorbidities, and also those aged 65 and above. As we are currently giving them the vaccine, let them come out in their large numbers and make best use of the vaccine.
The Chief of GRTS, Alhaji Yaya Jajusi, thanked government for acquiring the vaccine, citing the negative impact of COVID-19 on lives and livelihoods. The governor, other senior government officials, and some members of the public took their first dose of the vaccine at the event and now await the second dose, which should be taken after 8 weeks. Alajimbai, GRTS News.
Over now to the North Wing region, where our regional correspondent Famara Kanyi covered the commencement of COVID-19 administration in the region, and he brings us up to date.
A split second of pain, backed by anxiety, for this adult is a several years of life-saving protection. The Ministry of Health is leading the vaccination campaign, hoping to vaccinate over 1 million people in the near future. In the North Bank region, 4,000 doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine were received. Health officials said the first consignment of doses is prioritized for the elderly, people with underlying medical conditions, and frontline workers in the health facilities. George Sonko, chief of Lower Nyomi, and Mamoudou Chati Cham of Upper Nyomi also joined the long queue to take their first dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine at the SF District Hospital. Vaccinating senior government officials in the region will encourage communities to take up the injection after the circulation of a video on various social media platforms denouncing the efficacy of the vaccine.
We must close our ears to those few elements among us spreading false information about COVID-19 vaccine and dissuading people from taking the vaccine. Through false rumors and misinformation, so many people are dying and will continue to die due to lack of being vaccinated. Therefore, we must not allow the disease to gain a foothold in our country now that the vaccine is available to prevent the population. We can save our country, our continent, from being a reservoir for COVID-19 disease.
The vaccine is safe, it's good, come and take yours. This traditional communicator is trying to send a message to our local audience. Whilst the vaccination is ongoing, communities are still advised to continue respecting the COVID-19 regulations.
The government of the Gambia only accepts vaccines that are safe and effective, and these vaccines have passed the test. The Gambia government, in collaboration with its traditional and development partners, had come together in an unprecedented fashion to support the Gambia government in its drive to combat the disease in this country. The entire government machinery has been mobilized by the President to respond to COVID-19 pandemic and its ratification.
At the EPI unit of the Health Ministry, officials said the AstraZeneca vaccine is safe and accepted by the World Health Organization. Since the North Bank is divided into two administrative health regions, Farafenni General Hospital North Bank East have started administering COVID-19 vaccine to regional officials, which included the governor of the region, the chairman of the Kerawan Area Council, the chief of Central Badibu District, and frontline health workers. The vaccine, according to officials, is not for sale. For the news, I am Famara Kani.
Let's move on to the GRTS settlement of Kanikunda, where natives of the village were joined by scores of worshippers to inaugurate their newly constructed mosque. The project, estimated at a tune of over $8 million, was funded by natives of the village in the Gambia and abroad. Alhaji Mbaye attended the ceremony and the file in this report.
The multi-million-dollar mosque is funded mainly by natives of Kanikunda residing here and in other parts of the country, as well as those in the diaspora with support from individual philanthropists and organizations. This, according to Baba Almami Sedikan, a native of Kanikunda based in the US, is as a result of the commitment from community members and their partners.
The old mosque used to be 65 years, so we turned that down and tell everybody that we will be contributing every single 2-3 months. We contribute certain amount of figure that we send to our family here to build this mosque. And it took us 3 years. It came up to almost an amount of 8.3, 8.4 million. Mainly is the people from the village who are in the diaspora and who are here. When we say contribution, even the people who are doing gardening will pay their quotas.
The Deputy Imam of Kanikunda, Alhaji Kausu Sedikan, thanked the people for the unity, peace and development of the community. He, however, advises them to perform their prayers at the mosque. People have tried very well, including those here and in the diaspora and our partners, and now the mosque is completed. We thank everyone and advise people to come to the mosque to perform their prayers. That is the importance of the mosque, but not its beauty. I'm very hopeful that with the way people used to come to the mosque and attend prayers here, that wouldn't be a problem. Every prayer here is attended like Juma prayer. In his inaugural sermon, Imam Arfang Sidi Sedikan of Tabokoto called on people to be God-fearing, nurture peace and stability, and strengthen the Islamic faith. The Imam of Kanikunda, Ba Khalifa Sedikan, prayed for the continued peace and development of the village and the country at large. The inauguration of the mosque was attended by the party leader of the United Democratic Party, Lawyer Usainu Dabo, accompanied by a high-powered delegation of the UDP, including the Mayor of Banjul, Rahim Malik Do, Mayor of KMC, Talib Ahmed Bensouda, and the Chairman of Mansakonko Area Council, Landing B. Sane, as well as the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Momodu Sane, and Alhaji Conte, amongst other dignitaries. Alhaji by GRTS News.
We'll take a break now. Sport news up next. Do stay tuned. Welcome back. Now, the Gambia Wrestling Association and partners with support from European Union concluded a two-day training on traditional sports such as wrestling and cultural activities. Our URI correspondent Seydou Kamara covered the event and the file in this report.
The Gambia Wrestling Association has concluded a two-day training workshop geared towards promoting the role of traditional sports and cultural enterprises in post-COVID-19 economic recovery of local communities in the Upper River region. The training attracted 20 participants, including wrestlers, promoters, traditional singers, regional committee members, and drummers across the regions. In his opening remarks at the event, the governor of the region, Sambaba, hailed the Gambia Wrestling Association for organizing such an important capacity building. He urged the participants to make good use of the opportunity.
We all know wrestling used to happen in our bantabas. Villages used to organize wrestling in a bantaba where the communities around will come that particular night and have wrestling in that particular place. Let's ask ourselves, is that happening now? And if it is not happening now, why is it not happening, and what do we do in order to revive it? I think that is the reason why we are here today.
The chairman of Basse Area Council, Fode Danjo, said Galga is working very closely with the Gambia Wrestling Association on the implementation of the project.
Galga presently is in the process of providing lands for all the arenas to be constructed in the country. Already, Basse Area Council had already got 2 lands for arenas, and the third one also is already almost confirmed, which is going to be at the Aluma layout, possibly.
The desk officer for wrestling at the Ministry of Youth and Sports, Abdullah Bojang, described the training as very important in the promotion of wrestling.
That's the reason why I'm emotional. We've been working very hard to make this thing to happen. And today, if wrestling is having a workshop, I think that is a big achievement. We must have to take this occasion very seriously, because there are people that have worked very hard to achieve this.
The president of Gambia Wrestling Association, Seri Modufai, thanked Galga, GCCI, and NCAC for supporting the project while assuring the successful implementation of the project.
This workshop that you have seen here is just part of the scoping studies that we're going to do here. Like when we say scoping studies, it's to go back to the region and to the sectors to see the way of the type of wrestling that we have been doing in the ancestors and the benefit of wrestling. Like funny, in those days, by looking at the archive of wrestling, in those days you cannot find like any oldest wrestler, a veteran wrestler that has been doing it. So it's a challenge for us to go back to the society to see the type of wrestlers that we are here.
Mr. Fay also pointed out the lack of wrestling arenas as a major obstacle hindering the development of sport before acknowledging the support from the European Union.
Because you see now in the whole country, you will see everywhere you go a football pitch is constructed. And at the end, you see these councils, you see a CESDO or SUESDO, which governs the whole sporting fraternity. But in terms of wrestling, it looks like wrestling is not part of sports, because the charges that they charge wrestling, it looks like it's an independent sport being part of that group.
Mohamed Sangna from the Gambia Chamber of Commerce said the project will have a direct impact on the lives and livelihood of people.
Project is an EU-funded project. It's a grant amounting up to 500,000 euros, and the GCCI was selected as the lead coordinator for the project. The project has three components. One component is on improving the local handicraft sector. The second component is on improving local wrestling, and a third component on promoting intellectual property for local products and services so that they can gain access to the EU market.
The training is expected to equip the participants with relevant knowledge and skills as they are taught in different thematic areas during the two-day engagement. Sedu Kamara, reporting for GRTS News from Basse Upper River Region.
Now, 30 football coaches have completed a 2-week CAF C license coaching training in Yundum, and as MS Jallo reports, the training was organized by the Gambia Football Federation.
Adama Jaju, seen here at one of her training sessions giving instructions, is one of few Gambian women working their way into football coaching. Few years ago, Adama set up the Yagat Football Academy in her native village of Sifo in the West Coast region to train girls in her community how to play the beautiful game and help them realize their dreams. But for the past 17 days, Adama has left the girls to hone her coaching skills at the National Technical Training Center, called the Football Hotel, where she was among 30 football coaches, taking their CAF C license coaching badges. The 2 weeks training, which was jointly organized by the Confederation of African Football and the Gambia Football Federation, and conducted by local instructors, is in line with efforts to broaden the knowledge and understanding of coaches about the various aspects of the game, and it was worth attending for the likes of Adama.
It's a pleasure for me to be part of this coaching course because for the first time we have only 4 females doing the sea lancing, and then it's a big impression from my side. As you can see, coaching is all about learning.
The 30 participants from different football clubs and academies were trained in areas such as the physical aspect of football, conditioning, endurance, the importance of small-sided games, among other things.
I have learned a lot from this 16 days program. It is very educative, interactive, and the sessions were very good. We learned a lot, to be honest. Then was very intensive and more educative. From the tactical, the technical, everything we learned it from this coaching course.
Very happy. Coaching, they tell you everything, but they have taught us to know the sequence, to make it in sequence so that you work accordingly to the ages number of my academies.
Speaking at the closing ceremony of the 2-week-long training, Pasware Fai, the president of the Gambia Coaches Association, commended the participants for successfully completing the training. Fai also gave the assurance that the Coaches Association, under his leadership, will continue to educate its members. The intensive training, which was both theory and practical, was conducted by Gambian instructors, including Coach Lamin Sambo, Ibrahim Anyasi, Ahmad Cham, and Alaji Silla, who advised the group to go back to their respective teams and ensure the knowledge gained from the training is properly implemented.
Don't go back to the old habits. You are going out here with new ideas. You are going out here with better prepared. You are going from here and expectations are high. So if you go back to the old habits, then there was no point. All of us waste our time to be here.
The C license coaching course comes at a time when Gambian football has registered a remarkable success by qualifying to the African Cup of Nations for the first time. And this, according to the technical director at the Gambia Football Federation, has challenged the country's young coaches to double up their efforts. Sandong, under whose department is responsible for such trainings, also thanked the participants for cooperating throughout the course duration.
The GFF will make sure whatever possible we've got, we will invest in building human beings. It's important. It's more important than the infrastructures we're talking about. It's more important than any other thing we think about. So let's concentrate, let's remember, it's our responsibility as a federation to train referees, administrators, coaches, and medics. And we try to balance the triangle.
The participants were impressed with the training program as they were introduced to new coaching methods.
We are thankful and we hope
this training opportunity that is given to us will be utilized to the fullest. We will also go down as participants to contribute our quota in developing players as they are able to develop our capacity to take down to the grassroots.
The training was followed with an exam which will be sent to CAF for assessment, and those who passed will be awarded a CAF C coaching badge. But until then, Adam and her fellow coaches can go back to their various teams and impart the new skills into their players. Muhammad Jallo, GRTS Sports.
We'll take a break now. International news up next. Do stay tuned. Welcome back. Now, in Jordan, some 20 people were detained, including a former top advisor to the king and a member of the royal family. Former Crown Prince Hamza bin Hussein, who lost his crown in 2014, said he is also being prevented from leaving his home, which the military has denied. Let's have more in the CGTN News Report.
In Jordan say several high-profile figures have been arrested for security reasons in an apparent coup attempt. Now, some 20 people have been detained, including a former top advisor to the king and a member of the royal family. Former Crown Prince Hamza bin Hussein says he's also being prevented from leaving his home. The military refutes this. The half-brother of King Abdullah II is accusing the government of corruption, but denies his part of any conspiracy.
Elsewhere, Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates, hosted a climate dialogue for the Middle East and North Africa on Saturday. And U.S. Special Envoy John Kerry joined the talks and called for regional preparations and more ambition for the countries in the region in tackling climate change ahead of the UN Climate Summit taking place later this year. U.S. President Joseph Biden is expected to announce a new target for reducing emissions as part of efforts to bring America back to the international table. With more in the CGTN report.
Taking part in these climate dialogue hosted by Abu Dhabi, it's set to focus on regional preparations ahead of a United Nations Climate Summit taking place later this year. Ahead of this meeting, the US Special Envoy on Climate has said discussions will focus on how to raise ambitions when it comes to tackling climate. Whilst Gulf countries such as the UAE and Saudi Arabia have increasingly begun looking at sustainable solutions and green energy as they try to transition their economies away from reliance on fossil fuels, fundamentally, most Gulf nations are still major oil and gas producers with some of the highest per capita emissions on the planet. That said, on the eve of this meeting, Kerry was shown some sites attempting to address this imbalance, such as a massive solar plant in Abu Dhabi and the use of mangroves to try and capture carbon. In the build-up to this dialogue, Kerry has also raised the possibility of working with China to tackle climate change, saying he was hopeful they can find common ground despite differences in other policy areas, a sign of somewhat more conciliatory approach to Beijing from the Biden administration than was seen under his predecessor, Donald Trump. President Biden is expected to announce a new target for reducing emissions at a global summit to be hosted later this year in the US. Kerry's attendance today in Abu Dhabi is seen as trying to lay the groundwork ahead of that summit.
Meanwhile, the Biden administration has agreed to grant more than 320,000 Venezuelan refugees temporary protected status due to the current political and humanitarian crisis in their home country. And let's hear more about what the migrants have to say on this decision.
The announcement has many Venezuelans celebrating. The Biden administration was granting them temporary protected status, or TPS.
Today, the whole of Venezuela celebrates. It celebrates because more than 320,000 Venezuelans living in the U.S. territory are going to benefit from the TPS.
And the majority of them live in South Florida. Now they don't have to fear deportation and can legally work in the U.S.
A lot of them have been running from persecution in Venezuela. There is a very big political and humanitarian crisis going on in Venezuela. And that's why the President Biden decided to designate Venezuelan as one of the countries to receive TPS.
Church World Services hosted an immigration clinic to assist Venezuelans in South Florida with the application process. A few of them shared their stories.
I was directly involved with the protests back in 2017, and that started the political persecution against me. I couldn't handle it anymore. It was unsustainable.
Elin came with his family and hopes to stay.
I truly hope there is a path to get our residency. That way we can continue establishing roots in this country and finally feel peace.
Rosalba Bello says that her chance to stay in the U.S. was fate.
2 days before my return to Venezuela, I suffered a heart attack and couldn't fly back.
She had come to visit her daughters who live in Miami.
I have no idea what would have happened if I had the heart attack there. The situation in Venezuela is complicated in all aspects, even at hospitals.
Foreign nationals from 12 countries, including Haiti, Honduras, Syria, and Yemen, now have this protection. To terminate it, the conditions justifying the extended stays must no longer exist. But this extension is not only temporary, it's also subject to reversal. A new administration can cancel a TPS designation at any time, like President Trump tried to do with Haitians during his term. The decision is now being debated in the courts. If these designations are rescinded, many of these immigrants will have to go back to a drawing board and wait for comprehensive immigration reform. Mitza Soledad Perez, CGTN, Miami.
And that brings an end to this edition of the News at 10. But before we go, we quickly take a recap of the top stories once again. Decentralizing Gambia's inoculation campaign, regional health officials have launched a rural COVID-19 vaccination program in Lower and North Bank regions. Building capacities on health implications of diabetes and hypertension, Gunjur Youth for Health train its members on non-communicable diseases. Elsewhere, scores of Muslims have attended the inauguration of a mosque in Jara Kanikunda worth over $8 million. In sports, the Gambia Wrestling Association and partners have concluded a 2-day training on traditional sports and cultural activities. In internationals, in Jordan, some 20 people were detained, including a former top advisor to the king and a member of the royal family. That was all in this edition of the News at 10 with me, Fatmata Sise. On behalf of the entire news team, thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of our programs and do stay safe.